He's a man of many, many faces. He may be pink, but he's really dangerous. Every enemy he meets is another bad guy for Kirby to beat. Then he takes away all their powers. Kirby. Nightmare in Dreamland. Kirby. Nightmare in Dreamland. Beating up the bad guys and taking away their powers.
Please don't leave. Hello, I'm Kartoffel, and sometimes I claim to be silent, but today, for whatever reason, I decided to show my complete lack of skill at playing and mixing music, as well as my best Jack Black impersonation. I'm not sure. But if you're still here, welcome back to another episode of Every GBA Game Ever. On this 10th episode, we are talking about a game that, unlike my intro, is pleasant on the ears. Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland. For those of you that may not know, this is actually a remake of the NES game Kirby's Adventure, which is the second game of the series, but the first to introduce his throat goat powers. The Game Boy Advance is home to several great remakes that are in a lot of ways superior to the originals. Along with Metroid Zero Mission, I would definitely say this is one of those. While not quite as drastic as Metroid, Nightmare definitely adds a lot to the game, both in presentation and function. With additions such as multiplayer and extra modes, as well as a few new sub-games, and copy abilities now give you hats. So does that mean if I wear a different hat, it'll give me a different power? Gosh. No, I've always been this. One of those extra modes, I'll touch on it a bit later. But yeah, aside from the extra stuff, they just made this game look and sound better. Despite me being the metalcore screamy gent that I am, I can always get down on some Kirby music. Hands down, some of my all-time favorite video game music. So let's talk a little bit about the history of this game. Yeah, that's right. I'm doing my homework now. This game was developed to coincide with the Kirby Right Back At Ya show, which is why all the promotional material, box art, and that commercial I covered earlier use the art style that they do. At the time, there were no other Kirby games in development, and Masahiro Super Smash Sakurai, the man behind Kirby, didn't really love the idea of a remake, and even suggested a straight-up port of one of the previous games, but was afraid that players would find it to be stale. But they needed a new game, quick. So they went with a full-blown remake of Kirby's Adventure. A great jumping on point for newcomers, as even though Adventure is the second game of the series, it's the first to introduce copy abilities. Also, the first game, Kirby's Dreamland, can be beaten in 10 minutes, even when you're not a speedrunner. I know, I've done it. Adventure was a much beefier game to pull from. Apparently though, the devs struggled so much with getting multiplayer to work that they didn't get it going until about 2 months before the deadline. But I guess they got it going pretty good, as it became the main gimmick in the next game in the series. Unlike Metroid Zero Mission, which completely overrides the game it remakes, I will say the differences are not so drastic that you can't go back to the NES original and still enjoy that game. Though there is enough here that I'd still say this is the superior version. The cosmetics, the improved music, the portability, which will always entice me, and the new modes and options. I didn't test out the multiplayer myself. Even though the game is not the most expensive to track down, I still didn't feel like having to buy it to get people to play with me, or asking anyone to buy their own copy, just to play a Kirby game with me. Also, for whatever reason, it's not currently available on NSO either, so I'll stick to the single player. Now, one mode I figured I better touch on that I honestly completely forgot about at first was Meta Nightmare mode. So much so that I had to go back and record additional footage when I remembered this was a thing. I've beaten both Adventure and Nightmare in Dreamland several times, but never to the point of unlocking the extra modes. So this actually provided a bit of a challenge for me. I kept having to do the dirty goblin thing and look up what to do next. Something of note about this game is that King DDD actually was kind of in the right. I mean, he knew the nightmare was inside the Star Rod, and he was trying to keep it from being reawoken. He just went about it the wrong way, and because he's the default bad guy, everybody took Kirby's side. And yeah, everything did work out in the end, but we all know Kirby's the one who messed up here. But I did eventually get there. To unlock Meta Nightmare Mode, you must first 100% the main game. This unlocks Extra Mode. And once you beat Extra Mode, then you unlock Meta Nightmare Mode. Thankfully, neither of these modes require 100% to complete them. Extra Mode is just the regular game on a harder difficulty. But Meta Mode is that, but you play as Meta Knight. And it's kind of a speedrun mode. You can't save, and there's a timer always counting. It is tricky to get through, but it's so much fun. Is it just me, or does anybody else find the controls to be just a little unresponsive sometimes? Like something's just slightly off. Like every now and then in game, I would press one direction while I was facing another and not turn, and therefore get hit or killed. I'm not sure if it's just my copy, my Game Boy, or what, but this happened more than a few times. I mean, obviously I've made it through anyway, but just wondering if anybody else had this problem. This is as good a time as any to warn those of you who are new here, and even those who are returning. My hinge officially broke with this one. Nothing snapped, nothing specific happened, but I think it's time I stop holding back. I'm an old man who has way too many skills and interests. Some are more finely tuned than others, but there's no telling what might happen in these videos from here on out. So if you're interested to see how I can further embarrass myself while also playing some video games, you should subscribe and leave me a comment. And as always, stick around for more!